They were lowering the coffin when I yelled it. Not polite, not careful, just loud enough to stop the ropes. Mid-air, stop the choir, mid-note. Stop a whole city from pretending. It already knew the ending. Stop the burial. She's breathing, and yeah, I know how it sounds. A black man in a beat-up jacket shouting at a billionaire's funeral at Kingsley Park in Port Providence, live trucks idling under the oaks, cameras blinking like hungry eyes. The gold nameplate reading Evelyn Cross, while her husband Graham turned toward me with that public grief face rich men practice. The family doctor, Randall Knox, sweating through expensive fabric, and Aunt Lydia Steele, calm, measuring me without flinching, as I pushed through suits that cost more than everything I owned. You know what I mean when a room decides who you are before you speak, I said. My name is Malik Rains. I built half the security you people rely on, and I heard something last night behind St. Agnes Hospital. That means she isn't gone. And I pulled a small amber vial from my backpack that caught a slice of sun, a reversal for a marine toxin that slows everything down until a pulse looks like silence. Graham did the TV voice, grotesque, disrespectful closure, while Dr. Knox stared at the grass like maybe the ground would swallow him. Aunt Lydia lifted one hand without looking away from me and said, "If there's a sliver of a chance we stop," the guards froze. The pastor stepped back, and I put my palm on the lacquered lid like I was greeting a person, not a headline. I didn't come to make a scene, I said. 3 years ago, I found out Graham was moving money. He found out that I found out by sunrise I was the thief. Charges stuck to me like wet asphalt. Lost the apartment, the job, the name on the badge. And when people stop seeing you, they start talking near you like you're a tree, so. Yeah, I sleep light behind loading docks. I hear things last night. I heard timing doses. How cold the body should be. How early the service had to start. How noon meant done, and if you want to call me crazy, fine, but give me 5 minutes and let me try to pull someone back, Graham barked for security again. Aunt Lydia didn't blink. Then a voice behind the umbrellas said, "Not yet," and Professor Celeste Quinn, retired forensic toxicology, coastal state shoes that didn't sink in wet grass, stepped forward with a neat leather case and a recorder and asked Dr. Knox if he wanted to repeat his questions about tetrodotoxin in sublethal doses, how long until spontaneous respiration returns, how to keep a patient cold enough to look gone. Graham tried the charm, then volume, then nonsense. The professor pressed play. The audio was ugly, like all parking lot audio is ugly, but you could hear it. It has to be tonight. The dosage will hold. Get her in the ground. And a sound moved through the crowd I still don't have a word for, half gasp, half growl, like a room realizing it backed the wrong story. I held up the vial and explained the drops under the tongue. 3 to 5 minutes a window that closes, whether you believe in it or not. The pastor nodded like a man who had decided faith wasn't just for Sundays. Aunt Lydia set her palm next to mine on the lid and whispered, "Please, Graham," planted himself like a goalie over my dead body. "No need." I told him over hers. "You already tried." And that's when the first cruiser rolled up the path, quiet. Marshal Ortega stepped out. County task force, not a TV cop. Took one look, kept his deputies wide, and told me, "Do what you came to do, son." My hands were steady, which surprised me after all the nights they shook from the cold. I cracked the lid. Evelyn looked like marble. Beautiful, yes, but still. And I spoke close, Ms. Cross. "It's Malik, 2 drops, 1, 2, then time turned cruel. You count Mississippi, and your chest forgets how to move." A kid whispered, "If this was magic somewhere." A cameraman swapped lenses like a prayer. Minute 2 was nothing. Minute 3 was a moth, tapping the window under my hand. Professor Quinn leaned in with a stethoscope, faint but present. She breathed, "Doctor." Knox folded into a chair. Graham stepped back like the ground tilted. I kept talking. "Come on, stay with me 4 minutes. eyelids twitching, breath shallow and stubborn. 4.5. Fingers just once. 5. A small sound, and then another. And the scream that went up wasn't pretty. It was human, wild, grateful, terrified. Aunt Lydia grabbed her niece's face and said, "You're here over and over," like she was building a bridge with those 2 words. Graham tried to run and found deputies where doors used to be. He threw out lawyers and defamation, like confetti. "Ortega didn't blink, sir. You can shout those at our office," Professor Quinn handled Evelyn. I pulled the beat-up tablet from my bag and mirrored a folder onto a field monitor, because justice isn't just miracles. It's math. Wire transfers to a Barbados Shell email. Drafts about acceleration clauses, house entry logs at 2:14 a.m. A spreadsheet mapping missing funds against Graham's new hobbies. He asked how I got it, which is not the same as saying, "It's a lie." "Library internet 4 hours at a time," I said, "and maybe change the default passwords when you steal a man's life, but keep his systems, Doctor." Knox whispered about threats to his license, his kid's scholarship, how he never meant for it to be this. The professor cut him off, because meaning is cheap and habits are expensive. Ortega lifted 2 cuffs like a low-budget magic trick and said, "Graham Cross, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder and a buffet of financial crimes. Randall Knox, you're under arrest for negligence and conspiracy. Try not to trip on your own egos on the way to the car." The crowd applauded from the gut, not polite. A sound that leaves your chest sore. The news called it a resurrection. I called it a restart. The months after were not glamorous. Depositions, audits, rebuilding a company that had been breathing shallow for years. Evelyn walked into her own office like a storm made stronger by water. Boards changed, locks changed, norms changed. I got a badge that said Chief Integrity Officer, which still makes my younger self snort laugh. We put everything under a microscope. Every card, every vendor, every shadow line item found 22 million that had been leaving in quiet trickles, took it back. And then we did the thing that kept me up when the cold wouldn't. We built Harbor Homes. 500 units on the parcel Graham wanted for luxury condos. And the math shocked people who had never tried dignity at scale build. Right, rent-fair investors get a return, kids get keys, rain turns into just weather. Not a problem. The night we opened the first building, a custodian shook my hand and said he used to see me sleeping by the library and didn't wake me because he thought I needed the rest. I told him he did right. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let a body sleep. You know what I mean? People asked about forgiveness. Like it's a switch flip, it and everything is light. I don't have that circuit. I'm not big on revenge either. Turns out revenge is just grief wearing boots. But I am very big on consequences. Graham got 25 without parole, Doctor. Knox got 10, and a lifetime with the word oath ringing in his ears. Professor Quinn sent a postcard from a lake with a tiny drawing of an amber vial and 2 words. Good work. A year later, Coastal State called and asked me to talk to a graduating class about ethics and courage, and all the words that sound easy until life asks if you mean them. I told 1,000 faces what nobody put on a brochure. Nobody teaches you how to lose your name and get it back. Nobody tells you the day you pick justice over being liked. You'll eat lunch alone for a while, but there will be a morning, in mud, in wind, with a city watching, when you are the only person willing to say the thing that stops harm from becoming history. Say it even if your hands shake, especially if your hands shake 2 years after the longest. 5 minutes of my life, I went back to Kingsley Park. Smaller crowd, no choir. Graham's coffin went into the ground, with only dirt doing what dirt does. Evelyn came because she is kinder than I am, on the walk back. She asked me if I think about what would have happened if the antidote hadn't worked. All those cameras, all those eyes, all those people certain about my worth. I told her the truth every day. And then I think about something else, how a city looks different after you've slept in its shadows. You notice angles more than views. The nurse who sneaks an extra blanket. The guard who pretends not to see your phone charging. The librarian who lets the clock run long. Mercy is infrastructure. Build it strong, and everything holds. Since the funeral, I've been called hero, hacker, criminal, who got lucky. Proof. The system works, proof it doesn't. The truth is messier and simpler. I am a man who got a sliver of a second chance and tried not to waste it. I didn't save Evelyn alone. A fierce ant stood up. A professor said, yes. A marshal chose calm over show. A crowd chose to be witnesses instead of gossips. Justice isn't a superhero. It's a relay you run until your lungs burn. Then you pass the baton and pray the finish line isn't a grave. And here's the part you'll argue about in the comments, because every good story deserves a fight. Did I break rules to stop a greater wrong? And if I did, was I right? Would you have yelled, stop at a funeral with shaky audio and 4 hours of library Wi-Fi? If the antidote had failed, would I be the villain in your bedtime story? Do you measure risk or humanity when a person might be buried while you hold a vial that could save them? I don't have a poster answer, I only have the choice I made. And what came after, I chose to speak in a place built for silence, to trust a sliver of science and a woman with steady hands, to believe a life outranks an empire with good lawyers to bet on. The little guy not staying little forever, yeah. That happened. And now it's your turn. Drop your take, tell me where you're watching from, call me right. Call me reckless. Tell me what you've seen, power due to truth, or how someone, nobody counted, pulled a lie up by the roots. Like, subscribe and leave your story, because the next time you hear a voice whisper, stop the burial, she's breathing. I hope you listen.